Welcome back to the Standing Room Only podcast with Goose and Healy. Big episode with the NBA trade deadline happening today as we're recording this. If you guys do not follow us on social media, S or Only Pod, you can connect with us there, ask us questions for future podcast episodes or some topics that we could discuss on future episodes. As always, if you do enjoy the episodes, make sure you hit that like button or download button. I'm used to the YouTube lingo. Use that download button, download the episode. Best way to show support, as it's one of our only ways in which we could track our statistics. You can always delete the episode after downloading it for a bit. I don't know how long you have to have downloaded, but you can always delete it after a certain amount of time. If you want to follow us on our personal pages, follow myself at the Healy6.
And I'm iGoose with 4 O's. As always, don't ask why. Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, all the fun stuff. Make sure you hit that download button like Healy said. Stay interactive with us on social media. Healy, we have a lot to talk about. Big day. Probably one of the biggest days we've had since we started this podcast late 2019.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get into that, before we get into what would be the NBA trade deadline, which finished today, wrapped up today, we have some other news. We can start with baseball. I know there's some baseball news, kind of tragic to me and my fan base here in Chicago for the Southsiders. Eloy Jimenez tore his pectoral. I don't know which pec. I don't know if it's all one muscle, but I can tell you this much. He's out 4 to 6 months, which means they are going to have to play. Offensively, I think they're still okay without him.
Yep.
But he's a big piece. He's a guy who we would all expect to hit 40 home runs, bat a solid 280, 290 maybe, even a 270 you would take. He adds depth. He's your 3, 4, even a 5 hitter. It's going to hurt. I think that there's still confidence level in that offense. It's very deep, if you will. But being gone 4 to 6 months, it's going to take a toll. And hopefully we hang in there. We have make a playoff run and get him back. Kind of like how Kyle Schwarber did for the Cubs when he was hurt. Came back at the end of the season just in time for the playoffs and did his thing. So that is it. It hurts. It hurts.
Yeah, you took exactly what I was going to mention. As a Cubs fan, 2016 left fielder Kyle Schwarber, Eloy Jimenez, left fielder. The year before, they had those vibes, the 2015 Cubs vibes. So it's all just setting up the same storyline for this upcoming season. It's just super unfortunate. This injury could have been prevented very easily. If you did not see how Eloy Jimenez got injured, he went and tried. He couldn't have even robbed this home run. A dude hit a home run, he ran to the wall, and he, like Vince Carter, dunked over the wall. He jumped up, threw his left arm over the wall, and his elbow was like just hanging there. And because it like stretched his muscle, it ended up tearing over a ball that like he wasn't even like close to. He just did it just because, which hindsight's 2020. Like he could have done that normal, been fine, and we wouldn't have said anything. But spring training, got to be careful. He'll definitely never do that again in spring training.
Yeah, it's a freak accident. Who would have thought that, hey, if I go and pretend I'm doing something, I'm gonna get hurt. We've seen guys get hurt jogging before. So like you said, hindsight's 2020. You don't want to beat the guy up, but it's just one of those things where it's like, we are 1 week away. ESPN can wait. ESPN can wait. It's tough. It's definitely tough. And it's a major injury. It's a major muscle, one of the more major muscles that we have in our body. And for that to be the case, obviously he's going to recover. It's just a long recovery period. And I know he's hurting and it's going to be hurting the team and the fan base is going to be a little upset by it. But like I said, I think we'll be able to pull through. It's a big bat gone, but we did okay last year with the bats. I think if the pitching, which they are expected to do a lot better compared to last year, I think as long as the pitching steps up the way they're supposed to, we'll be okay.
Exactly. The White Sox without Jimenez, still a pretty good team.
Yeah.
And in baseball, not saying you could be gone without Mike Trout and you'd be fine, but you could be missing a piece of your team and you could play well. It will hurt in the long run. It'll maybe cost you a couple wins with their production compared to who you bring in and what they do, but that lineup is very solid all the way through. He'll come back. And unlike Schwarber was a leg injury. It was a torn ACL, so he had to play DH. If Jimenez comes back, they won't have to worry about him playing DH at all. And who knows? This injury, it said 5 to 6 months. He could probably recover fine and maybe in 4 months. Season hasn't started. So even when he comes back, he is going to have some time to play and be able to perform with the team before he's needed in the postseason. And they could always make moves during the season. So big blow to the lineup, but as a Sox fan, still should be very hopeful.
Yeah. I'm hopeful as a Sox fan with being able to be in attendance for games. Eloy Jimenez, no offense to you, big baby Eloy. With or without you, I'm probably going to be there cheering on the team, as the White Sox were voted the drunkest fan base, I believe, per average. So I'll be there. I'll be included in that. So, but anyways, yeah, that's pretty much the only baseball news. I don't think there was really anything else that
Kirby
really
Yates needs
happened.
Tommy John.
Who is that?
Kirby Yates, fresh Blue Jay signing.
Mm-hmm.
He was supposed to go there and make a huge impact with the closing role or a relief role. He needs Tommy John. So that is a big blow to the Blue Jays. But besides that, I don't really think there's too much news. No contract extension talk. No extensions really anywhere.
We're at the point where next week the season starts. We're going to have our predictions. I know we mentioned we would have it this week, but it actually does make sense. It lines up perfectly with right when the season's about to start next week. So make sure you guys tune in for our predictions of divisional winners. We'll have our playoffs, our World Series matchup. We'll have our All-Star game, or I'm sorry,
MVP.
MVP. Yeah. MVP and Cy Young. I don't know if we're going to really talk about any other awards yet. We'll probably talk about those down the road. But yeah, and then onto the NFL. I know that we're pretty much at the point where a lot of guys have already signed. The NFL draft is going to be coming up not too in pretty shortly. But we do have some signings. We do have, if I'm not mistaken, I know I'm not mistaken, Deshaun Jackson signed a deal with the Los Angeles Rams,
Yep.
which he's been one of those guys where, due to his speed, if he stays on the field, will always be a dangerous receiver. I think that's pretty good. It adds to a pretty good Rams receiving core. Obviously, it helps Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford gets an extra weapon. We don't know. Hopefully, he stays healthy. I know Malcolm Butler just signed a deal with the Arizona Cardinals, which is a big deal. Malcolm Butler, obviously, as he's gotten older, isn't as dominant of a defensive back like he once was when he sealed the deal in a Super Bowl game against the Seattle Seahawks, who should have ran football. But he signs a deal with the Cardinals, which adds to already a solid defensive team, I would say. They're improving. They last year was tough for them because their offense was good, but then the defense gave up a lot of big plays. They gave up, the points. Now they add JJ Watt. They have, Malcolm Butler. I still like Budda Baker at safety, is awesome to watch. Chandler Jones, yeah. It's a promising, it's an improvement. Let's put it this way. If I'm a Cardinals fan, I'm happy considering we already have a good offense. We're getting a little bit better on defense, which in the NFL, there's not many good defenses out there. There's teams that, the Bucks obviously are pretty good, but the Chiefs get away with having a mediocre defense. So that was a pretty big signing. And then there were some other small signings around the league. I know James White, if I'm not mistaken, is getting extended for the year. I believe he's getting like $2.5 million. The Bears just signed Williams from the Kansas City Chiefs.
Damien?
Was once Damian Williams. Yep. He just signed a deal with the Bears as well. He agrees to a 1-year deal as of yesterday. 28 years old. He's not bad. He's not bad. He's going to add to their their running back core committee, I guess we can call it. I know moving forward, David Montgomery is more than likely going to continue to be the lead back, the workhorse, especially after he had a little bit of a better year last year, this past season, to obviously complement the Pro Bowler and Andy Dalton. So there's some other signings here and there, but nothing really notable. But that's not a whole lot with the NFL. As we get closer to the draft, we might see some trades. Draft day trades does happen. We'll see some moves moving forward, but all the big names were pretty much picked up. Juju ended up signing a ridiculous cheap deal to stay with Pittsburgh.
And he could have went to the Chiefs.
Could have went to the Chiefs. He could have went to there was another team.
The Ravens.
The Ravens and yeah, Baltimore. Baltimore is striking out. Not too many receivers want to go there. I wonder why. You get these incentives as a player, and it's statistical based, and if you can get to the playoffs. But I wonder what their incentives are. Like, how can you offer an incentive to a receiver when they don't get the ball? They don't get the ball very much.
They're probably like, get 1,000 yards, and they're just like, I don't know if I can with this style of a team.
I'm going to have to catch one ball a game for 80 yards. I'm going to have to be Hollywood Brown. So that's another thing I was thinking about too, is the Ravens, how they're striking out on receivers, because they're in need. They're still going to be good. They're going to be great. The defense is great. Lamar Jackson's great at the quarterback position. As far as passing goes, obviously they slack a little bit. So we'll see about that. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the NFL. I'm ready. I'm ready, Healy. We had a big day today. We woke up. It felt like waking up on Christmas with, I remember when I got my Nintendo 64 when I was super young, and I was ecstatic. I wasn't as ecstatic as that kid in the commercial, but I was pretty ecstatic. And I was texting Healy this morning, and I didn't get a reply, and I was worried. And then finally he replied. He's like, "Hey, man, I'm just waking up. What's up?" And I get an OMG. OMG, everybody's gone. We got everybody. We got rid of everybody. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I woke up and half the team was gone. I was expecting the Bulls to make some moves, like by moving like one or two guys. I was not expecting to see exactly what happened today.
And so what that is, the Bulls made the biggest splash, by the way. And this is the first time they made a splash in probably history for a trade deadline.
Yeah.
The Bulls traded for Nikola Vucevic.
All-star caliber center.
All-star. Double-double. He's averaging almost 25 a game, almost 12 rebounds a game. His player efficiency rating is through the roof. Top 5 center. Top 5 in my eyes. All-star. And the Bulls also get Al-Farouq Aminu in the trade. They had to give up. It sounds unfortunate, but they had to give up the next 2 years first-round picks.
Well, 2021 and 2023. You can't go back to back.
Okay. So they get 21, 23. Okay. They also give up Wendell Carter Jr. and
completely
Otto Porter.
Fine.
And Otto
Which
Porter.
is completely fine.
This is how you know the guys in the front office are good at what they do. They got rid of Otto Porter Jr. I thought we were stuck with him the rest of the year. I thought he was, and we called it. We said he's going to sign his 1-year tender, his player option, get his damn $28 million. I would do it if I was him, if I was mediocre. He's not going to make that over maybe a 2-year span on his next deal. So he's getting that. Oh, wait. So Arturas and whatchamacallit, we're going to trade him for this package. So we're going to say, hey, we're going to give you two first-round picks. In return, you're going to get an undersized center who his defense is mediocre. He has some good games, not really. And we're also going to give you this horrible contract from Otto Porter Jr. And we're going to get one of the best centers in the game. We're going to get Al-Farouq Aminu, who, when healthy, is pretty good defensively. Yeah, he has a $9 million deal on whatever. We have to make the salary right. We'll take him. I'm happy. And that's not including the other deals. We'll get to the other deals.
Yeah, the first round pick.
Yeah.
First round picks, as I'm going to say it, first round picks are overrated. They are so overrated. The only time a first round pick is amazing is when you are a bad team. And guess what? Teams that trade first round picks are generally not teams that are going to end up drafting high. They know that they're going to trade these picks for good players or better players and then end up being a better team, which will raise their draft stock or like make them go further down in the order. And it won't even matter because you're going to be drafting players who probably won't even make an impact.
Exactly. And here's the thing to think about. The Bulls, as is, going into the day, I would consider them a 500 team. They're not a bad team. 2K has them rated super high for a reason. So we'd be in the middle of the pack. We'd be like 15th, 16th pick. Maybe we drop. Maybe we lose a couple games. We end up with like the 11th, 12th, 13th. Maybe get the lottery. Who knows? How often does a big man in the first round come out and dominate? Often. It's rare, actually. A lot of the big guys that get drafted, minus a Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Davis, Joel Embiid. I'm trying to think of some big guys right now that, like, for sure in the draft had to go top 5, top 10. But then again, these guys are going top 5, top 10. The Bulls won't have that pick.
Yeah.
And now you look at the window the Bulls had. Their cap space was going to clear up after this season. They're going to have so much money to attack free agency over the next couple of seasons because you have the 2023 first round pick to the point where the expectation is they're going to improve year over year as they start to contend. So now you're talking about a 15th overall pick in this upcoming NBA draft. And then in 2 years, it might be a 25th overall pick. We're not going to get a big man. And Vucevic is only 30 years old. He just turned 30. We got him for 3 years.
2 more years.
Including this year. So we have 2 more years.
Yep.
Sure, he's making a lot of money. But he's also producing. He's number 5 in player efficiency rating at center. He's shooting 40% from downtown. He's a big guy. I know a lot of people, they're like, well, Wendell, it's a block party. He's good defensively. He is. For his size, he manages. He manages extremely well. I will take that trade. If I'm the Bulls, I'm giving 100% every single time. I'm taking that trade. I'm happy. I'm very happy just with that trade alone. But then there's other trades.
Well, before we get to those, I wanted to briefly talk about Karl Anthony Towns is the last, and Kristaps Porzingis, last 2 big men that like have done anything within the first top 5 of the draft. Also, looking back on it, we now have Pat Williams. Wendell Carter's moved. The Bulls almost traded Wendell Carter in the 4 pick to move up to the number 2 pick and pick James Wiseman, which James Wiseman could be a sick guy. He could be awesome. But instead, we get a small forward he has such a great build. He could develop very well for Vucevic, who's already to where Wiseman could be in 4 to 5 years. But now.
Yeah, he's going to have to develop. Yeah.
And I was thinking about this as well. Like, if the Bulls moved up to the 2 pick, I know LaMelo has to have surgery on his hand. He's going to be out for a while. But if the Bulls traded up and they picked Wiseman and then LaMelo fell underneath them, I would feel so bad right now. Just as as a fan. But yeah, Vucevic, awesome. I'm glad that they did not go with that Wendell Carter draft trade and they used it now. But go ahead.
There was rumors about Orlando wanting to rebuild. They started off this year hot. They started off hot, and they got hurt. Vucevic is playing great. Who's their point guard that got hurt?
Cole Anthony.
Cole Anthony stepped in, but was it Michael Carter Williams was stepping up this year?
Yes.
I think he was averaging like a lot. He was doing pretty well. He ended up getting hurt. There's some other injuries too, but I had no.
They had Fultz.
Oh, Markelle Fultz. That's right. Markelle Fultz. Oh my gosh. The biggest bust in any draft, who actually is starting to come around.
Yeah.
Which I'm happy for him. Feel bad for Philly, but I'm happy for him. So Vucevic, nobody talked about him in the trade on the block.
I didn't hear anything about him.
Rumors. Aaron Gordon all week. Everybody's, oh my gosh, get Aaron Gordon. I'm like, you want to trade for athleticism? A guy who can't even produce on the court, let alone stay on the court all the time. But you want a dunk champion. We have one of those. We have a dunk contest winner. I don't even know if he won, but he's a great dunker. We have a highlight film. I don't need a guy who could dunk under his legs. I don't need that. They got possibly the biggest steal in trade deadline. I'm not going to say history, but at least in the last few years. We saw like the Pelicans got a pretty good deal because they were not winning with Anthony Davis. And we saw how their future is. They got a pretty good trade. The Bulls got a pretty good trade here. Simply, as you mentioned, we got Pat Williams still. We got to keep Lauri Markkanen. I know I would have been okay if Lauri got traded. If the trade fell through for Lonzo, it wasn't enough. Lonzo Ball was rumored to come to Chicago and a couple other teams. We get to keep Lauri Markkanen, who has some good games. Those are two big dudes in the paint who can spread. Think about the ISO that's about to be ran right now. Zach LaVine can score at will. He can drive. He can shoot the ball. You get Vucevic, who can hit the three ball. He shoots 40%.
Wendell Carter couldn't.
Wendell Carter.
Daniel Gafford couldn't.
Daniel Gafford's not hitting it. But now you have Lauri Markkanen. You have Vucevic. Pat Williams actually is a little bit better than what people were giving him credit for the three ball. You're going to run the ISO. Zach LaVine gets to the bucket at will, one-on-one, at will. I like this offense. The offense was already super talented with high potential. They had some bad games. It's to be expected. Anyways, I'm excited thinking about it. We'll probably see them debut in a few days. And so, anyways, moving on with the rest of the trades.
Why did the Bulls win this deadline? Not as a biased fan. The Bulls won the trade deadline.
It's both. I'm also biased, but they definitely did. As a fan of the game, I was shocked. They won. Healy, you can give the rest. So they traded for more players.
Yeah, so the Bulls they weren't done there. They ended up trading with the Wizards. So with the Wizards, they got rid of Daniel Gafford, Chad Hutchinson, and they got Troy Brown
Jr.,
and Mo Wagner in a deal. So Troy Brown coming over to the Bulls. They got rid of Gafford, who Wendell Carter and Gafford were their two centers. They were legit. They're two guys. So that Troy Brown,
kryptonite.
He wasn't averaging like pretty much anything this year, but could see him getting more minutes with the Bulls.
Troy Brown I was fascinated with his game in the bubble. Everybody was hurt for Washington last year. Beal didn't play. So there were a few guys that got to step up. We saw Thomas Bryant, who obviously got hurt this year, but because of his bubble performance, he was able to start. Troy Brown in the bubble, he had in 8 games, I think he had 2 double-doubles. He had almost like 2 triple-doubles. He averaged 18 points, 20 points in a lot of games. And he's young. He's super young. So they know what they're doing by bringing him. because our
Yeah.
bench it's shaky.
Yeah, he still has 1 year left after this year. And then he has a couple team options over the next couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And then they also went out and got Mo Wagner, who is a center, 6'11" center. He's averaging 7 and 3, but he isn't on the Bulls. The Bulls traded for Troy Brown and Wagner. And then before the trade deadline happened, right before, they flipped Wagner for Daniel Tice.
I'll take it.
I'm hyped for Daniel Tice. 6'8", so he is a little bit shorter than Wagner. He does play the center position, but I feel like in 24 minutes he averages 9 and 5. He averages a block per game. He's going to be good defensively, still with the undersized center, so like off on defense, but he can run the shorter. He could run in like a shorter lineup for the Bulls and produce a little more. He shoots 35% from the 3-point, so he can shoot, or he's a better shooter than what we had.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
I like it. I watched him play some games where Tatum was out, Jaylen Brown was out, so they relied on him more offensively. And he's not scared. He's not scared at all.
Yeah.
He will shoot the ball if he has to. He's physical inside, which Wendell Carter was physical. Wendell Carter's not a bad player by any means. He's a good player. But yes, you're getting another 6'8" guy, but he's a little bruiser in there. You got to like him. He can shoot. If he has to shoot, he's not scared. So for Mo Wagner, that's an increase. I feel like that's an upgrade.
Yeah, they didn't trade, literally, like, they just traded a guy they got back in a deal. Also, with Daniel Tice, he basically, or his last play with the Celtics was a game winner. You did not know. Yeah, he had a game winner for it.
There we go. And a lot of one thing to mention too, the Bulls have a lot of expiring contracts coming up in this next season, next 2 seasons to be specific. They're gonna have a lot of money while still keeping Vucevic for the next couple of seasons, as well as LaVine. LaVine's probably gonna want to get paid eventually, maybe a little bit more than what he's getting. But even then, love the core. I mean, you have 2 all-stars, perennial all-stars. So that's the Bulls right there. The potential starting 5. Satoransky, maybe they let him go after this season. Let him go. Kobe White off the bench for now. We have Zach LaVine at the 2, Pat Williams at the 3, Lauri Markkanen at the 4, Nikola Vucevic at the 5. Got some solid bench players. Maybe not the greatest bench, but it'll do.
Yeah,
let the starters play their 32 to 35 minutes. They're making the playoffs. This team is making the playoffs. They were ready in the playoff hunt. Hornets are hurt. LaMelo Ball's hurt. They're still dangerous. But I feel like they're going to fall back. Vucevic adds a few extra wins to the season, catapults them in as an 8th seed, potentially a 7th seed. If they can somehow sneak in as a 7th or a 6th seed, I don't think it's going to be an easy first round for whoever they play.
I could see them moving up to like a 6th or 5th seed.
It's possible because that 5th through 8th is separated by only a few games.
4 through 10 right now is separated by 3 games.
That's nuts.
Which includes the Hornets, Knicks, Hawks, Heat, Celtics, Pacers, and then the Bulls.
I can't contain myself right now. The fact that you just said that. The fact that they could potentially end up as a 5th seed or even a 4th seed. Maybe not because Milwaukee. But they could still potentially be a 4th seed. Which, your 4th seed, you're playing the 5th seeded team. Who's that going to be? New York? Maybe Indiana steps up somehow. Miami.
The Heat and Celtics pick it up a little bit.
Yeah. Anyways, enough excitement talk.
So what does this mean as a Bulls fan? So basically, as we said, they could end up as high as a 4th or 5th seed. That's like the best way. I still think they're going to end up as a playoff team. If you are not a fan of the Bulls and you're like, why did the Bulls make all these trades? They aren't really doing anything with this group right now. They weren't doing anything with the group they had. This is the process of changing the Bulls into a competitive team. I saw a quote today, or like someone basically stating that the GM said, hey, we've seen 40 plus games of this team. It's good enough sample size, and this team isn't working, so we have to retool, which is good. You never would have saw Garpax do that. They would have just either sold off the contracts that were expiring this year and just let out the team ride out the season. But no, the guys we picked up to be in our front office, they are trying to win. And the process starts now. They added that all-star center. The plan is for the future. Because now that you have Levine and Vucevic, you could sign guys in free agency and push this team to the next level. Maybe a superstar ends up being released or like ends up entering free agency and the Bulls make a good enough offer. They show him Levine, Pat Williams steps up and like becomes a very good guy, and maybe like a power forward or point guard ends up in free agency. They could sign with the Bulls and boom, they're going to be a good team. So the plan was for the future, and it's looking good to start off. They aren't waiting until the off season to make moves. I'm happy.
Everybody happy. It literally keeps everybody happy. You are showing that you're taking initiative as a leader. The GMs, Arturis and Mark Eversley. They're telling the fan base, hey, we're here to help bring a championship back to Chicago. Here's how. They're telling the players, we're here for you. You guys aren't just in Chicago because it's a major market. We're here because we want to build a championship team, and we think you are part of that. Now we're going to go out and make these moves to bring in an all-star so that now the level of competition is being kicked up even higher. They're going to challenge each other. I love it. I love it. And they're letting the league know we are on the map. We're on the map. We are back.
Exactly. And no one is really safe on this Bulls roster. They are going to be aggressive. So that is the Bulls talk. Some other trades that happened. We'll start off with the earliest one. I don't even know how to pronounce this name. Fiondu. He got traded to the Kings, 27th pick in the 2019 draft. I don't really think that's worthy talking about. Pistons trade DeLon Wright to the Kings for Corey Joseph. So Pistons unloading. The Kings get a good wing player.
Oh, yeah.
So they have Halliburton. They have De'Aaron Fox. They have some big men. And now they get DeLon Wright to fill out the three. They did have Harrison Barnes and Buddy Hield, but this guy, DeLon Wright, will add some depth to the team. Come off the bench probably for that team.
He's good. I like him.
The Cavs trade JaVale McGee to the Nuggets. Nuggets, they were a surprising team today. They got a couple interesting players with JaVale McGee. We'll get to the talk about Aaron Gordon here in a couple minutes. But JaVale McGee goes for third-year center Isaiah Hartenstein, who I haven't really heard of. So they're going to get some big man depth in Denver. The Cavs, they have a lot of big man depth regardless, so they were just trying to get rid of whoever. The Magic trade Evan Fournier, don't look up his last name on Google, to the Celtics for Jeff Teague. So I heard about this trade early in the day. I didn't realize he got traded for Teague. Teague wasn't good with the Celtics, so he's going to fill in that point guard spot for the Magic right now. Evan Fournier, he'll be a great piece to that Celtics team.
Yeah, that's what they need. They need shooters. Jeff Teague, I'm very surprised that he got traded for Jeff Teague. I'm not surprised actually because this Magic is just unloading. Jeff Teague hasn't really done much. He hasn't been the Jeff Teague. He's past his prime. Evan Fournier generally plays the 2 guard. But I mean, he's going to help stretch the floors. The Boston Celtics like to shoot the 3 ball. He's going to complement that very well.
And then we got Aaron Gordon going to Denver for Gary Harris and RJ Hampton. RJ Hampton was drafted this year, 24th pick. Hasn't really done much as a player. So they get a 3, 4, 5 guy if they need with Aaron Gordon. They get rid of Gary Harris, who is a shooting guard. He's averaging just under 10 points and just under 2 assists per game. He played 30 minutes this year, too. He's only played in 19 games. He is hurt right now. He's out for the foreseeable future. So that could have been a big reason. The Nuggets are a playoff team. Gary Harris, his contract, he has 1 year left on his deal. Yeah, 1 year left. It looks to be guaranteed. So kind of interesting in that. I think Aaron Gordon, I think his deal is ending this year. Could be wrong on that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's got 1 year left. This is an expiring contract.
Yeah, he has 1 year left. Gary Harris is expected to make $20 million. Aaron Gordon's expected to make 16.
Gary Harris was pretty damn good for a little stretch. Maybe if he gets healthy, maybe he's around. We'll see. RJ Hampton obviously is the future. There was a the 2025 first round pick as well, which goes from Denver to Orlando. I believe it's a top 5 protected pick for 25, 26, and 2027. So we'll see if they're not. I doubt they're going to be top 5. So, we'll probably see that coming up in the 2025 season. Shouldn't say coming up. It's in a few years. So I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't really know if Aaron Gordon's really going to compliment Denver. Maybe he does. Maybe I'm just trash talking Aaron Gordon, and maybe I just don't think he's as good as the hype, but
yeah, could fit into a good system. The Magic, they haven't been too great. They haven't really had like a great team. They've kind of just meshed players together. Like maybe in Denver works out way better. I kind of think Aaron Gordon's a little overrated. So that one a little interesting. We'll have to see what Aaron Gordon does, but again, I think he's a little overrated in a sense. The Kings, they made a trade to get Mo Harkless, so they get another wing player. They get Mo Harkless. He can play the 3. He can play the 4.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Norman Powell, this is a big one. Norman Powell goes to the Blazers for Gary Trent Jr. and Rodney Hood. Gary Trent Jr.'s had a couple good games this season, but with CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard, they get that 3 that they need in Norman Powell.
Norman Powell has been stepping up for Toronto in times when they need him. Pretty consistent. I think that is a very good move. Not saying Gary Trent's bad. He's not bad by all means. But Norman Powell, just from what he's done in Toronto, I like the trade. I like the trade a lot. Fun fact, in 1998, Gary Trent Sr., who's Gary Trent Jr.'s dad, also played with the Blazers, was traded to the Raptors 41 games into his 3rd NBA season. 23 years later, Gary Trent Jr. gets traded from the Blazers to Toronto 41 games into his 3rd season as well. What a coinky dink. That's all I got to say. That was my fun fact for the night.
Weird coincidence in that. We had the 76ers making a splash. They kind of they needed a point guard type player. They were looking at Kyle Lowry. big player who did not end up moving at all. Very surprised. They ended up getting George Hill in a 3-team trade. So Sixers got rid of their backup center, Tony Bradley. They got rid of Terrence Ferguson and 2 future second-round picks. Oh, well. Second-round picks, very worthless to the Thunder. They get George Hill from the Thunder. The third team that entered this was the Knicks. The Knicks got Ferguson, and they sent Iggy Brosdikis. Never heard of him. And then Austin Rivers went from the Knicks to the Thunder. And then the second round picks that the Sixers are sending to the Thunder in 2025 and 2026. So Knicks they hopped in just so they could get rid of Austin Rivers, who I don't think has been having too great of a year. The Sixers, they get a point guard. They do have Ben Simmons, which is great, but they don't really have any other playmakers on their team. Like, I know their starting lineup, it was basically Ben Simmons. They had Danny Green or Seth Curry. They had Tobias Harris. And then they had Joel Embiid, and you could have started either Seth or Danny Green at the 2 and 3. But George Hill, he adds another ball handler to the team, and he can facilitate if needed. After that, the Raptors sent Terrence Davis to the Kings for a second-round pick. Terrence Davis, man, another deal to the Kings. The Kings they were under the radar. They picked up a bunch of guys who are just haven't played too much, but they're going to add depth to their team. The Kings right now are they're the 12th seed. They're 3 games back of even being considered in the play-in tournament. A little odd in that sense. Probably the most interesting trade. Clippers got Rajon Rondo for Lou Williams. Lou Will. Sixth man of the year.
Very random trade.
He was the sixth man of the year multiple times in his career. He was a big piece of the Clippers. But if you understand kind of why it was made, you realize why this trade happened. So Lou Will, he's kind of having a regressing year, not being too great. The Clippers needed a playmaker, they needed a ball handler, and someone who's pretty decent on defense. Rajon Rondo does that. You got PG, you have Kawhi, you have guys that can shoot regardless, and they're a pretty good defensive team anyways. Lou Williams just was not providing what that team needed offensively to make up for his defensive woes, and they just got rid of him. Lou Williams is in his contract year, so they probably weren't going to sign him regardless.
Yeah, the bet is you get Rondo, get into the playoffs, and you get playoff Rondo. Always kicks it up a notch. He's literally like, I don't know, John Lester in the playoffs for baseball. He's just that guy. He's like Tom Brady in the playoffs. You bet on him. You bet on him. And with that team, it's weird as it sounds. You would think Lou Williams, how can Rondo be better than Lou Williams? Get to the playoffs, you'll see. He's a playmaker. Lou Williams is not so much playmaker. He's great off the bench at scoring, but all that scoring is not needed as long as the Clippers are healthy. They need someone to help facilitate the basketball offensively, which he's going to help.
Yeah. Yeah, they have Marcus Morris. They have Serge Ibaka. Like, Reggie Jackson's there. They have Nicholas Batum. They have the offense. They need guys to facilitate. And Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, they aren't necessarily guys that you can give them the ball and they will do work. They will get a bunch of points. Kawhi's averaging 26. Paul George is having 22 and a half. But they aren't the type of guys that get the ball in their hands all game and they win a bunch of ball games, because LeBron, you see him, he's rebounding, he's assisting, he's involved in everything. He can handle the ball, he could drive to the rim. I don't see Kawhi. Paul George is a better facilitator, playmaker, where you ISO him, and he could be the type of guy to get a bunch of triple doubles. Kawhi, on the other hand, I think he gets his buckets. He gets his quiet buckets. You could give him a little ISO here and there, but relying on him for a full game, they needed that guy in Rondo to help out.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then from that point, we have the Hornets. I don't know if we touched base on this. The Hornets to get Brad Wanamaker from the Warriors. That was just for cash. Trying to add some depth to their backcourt. LaMelo Ball got hurt, probably out for the season, as you mentioned earlier. So that was another trade, which is pretty much just cash considerations. Warriors also traded Marquise Chris to the Spurs because the Spurs are going to be buying out LaMarcus Aldridge's contract, supposedly. They couldn't find a taker. They couldn't trade LaMarcus, so chances are he's going to get bought out. And where's LaMarcus going to go?
Right now, it's the Heat. The Heat are the Miami, number one option.
Okay. So, which the Heat made a splash. But before we get to that, let's finish up with this list here. Mavericks were able to trade and get JJ Redick and Nicolo Melli from the Pelicans, which is a good trade. Both guys can shoot the three ball. Melli being a power forward, I want to say. I guess he could play both big positions. They're going to complement Luka. Dallas, they had to give up James Johnson, Wesley Awundu, and some cash considerations along with a 2021 second-round pick. So they didn't really give up a whole lot. I would say it's a pretty fair trade. They only gave up the second-round pick. They gave up some cash because Melli is a little bit younger. And again, JJ Redick is JJ Redick. I mean, you know what you're going to get out of him, especially if they do make this playoff push, which they should be able to, as long as they're all healthy. JJ Redick is pretty good in the playoffs.
Yeah, and it's funny with, man, this page updated. What is funny is JJ Redick in an interview basically said that he, because he was getting bought out, he was getting interviewed, and he said, I would like to play for a team close to my home in Brooklyn. He was thinking he was going to get bought out and go to
Brooklyn.
The Nets.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is just hilarious. It's pretty funny how, if he would have said, yes, release me, I want to play for the Nets, he would have gotten fined. But he was like, I live in Brooklyn. I kind of just want to play close to home. So the Pelicans, they ended up not buying him out. They found a buyer. Boom. Got sent to the Mavericks.
You're going to the exact opposite end of the spectrum, my friend.
Mm-hmm. And
where it's hot.
It's something odd, a fun fact about JJ Redick. I said he lived in Brooklyn. When he played for the Philadelphia 76ers, he would drive from his Brooklyn home to Philadelphia every time he needed to.
I believe that. Everything's close over there. I went to Jersey last two summers ago, and they just have these bridges that connect all these surrounding states. Everything's an hour, 2-hour drive at most.
Brooklyn to Philly is 2 hours.
I don't know if it's worth it.
No.
If I'm a basketball player, I'm just going to get a place in Philly.
He decided not to. He decided to take the 2-hour drive every single day. 2-hour plus drive to and from.
Good for him, I guess. That's dedication.
And then we had the final trade, which was Victor Oladipo, the buzzer beater, going to the Miami Heat.
Oh, yeah. Big trade. Big trade.
Rockets get Kelly Olynyk, they get Avery Bradley, and they get a pick swap. So the Heat, they actually end up buying in at the deadline, and they are going to make an impact towards the playoffs. So they're going to have Goran Dragic, they're going to have Victor Oladipo, they're going to have Bam Adebayo, Tyler Herro's still there, Duncan Robinson, Jimmy Butler. Have a pretty solid team.
Oh, yeah.
Victor Oladipo, he's in the last year of his deal. And the Rockets, they weren't doing anything.
And they
So
didn't really give
Rockets,
up much for him. Why not
no,
trade for a win now roster? Why not?
yeah, buzzer beater deal. And speaking of Tyler Harrow, I saw today he was shooting worse on the season than Russell Westbrook, shooting 31.2%. Russell Westbrook was shooting 31.3.
Is that field goal or threes?
Field goal.
Oh, I guess when you shoot threes all day, it's not as bad, but you got to give me 40%. You got to hit something in the lane. You got to hit something in the lane there. That's low. A lot of high expectations. He's young. He's young. He'll battle through it. That's nice. They
Oh,
were able to
it
keep him
was
and
it was
Duncan.
3 point. It was 3 point
Oh,
actually.
okay, okay.
He's shooting 41.4% from the
From the
two,
field.
or just
Okay,
from the
so
field.
from the yeah, I guess it's not as bad. I was about to say, man, that's surprising because I know he can drive and hit in the like his mid range. That's good though. They were able to keep him, who can get better. That's fine. It's his what sophomore season.
Yep.
Duncan Robinson they kept. He's not bad. They still have Kendrick Nunn off the bench. Miami to me can give another can be a headache to Philadelphia or Milwaukee in the playoffs again. They definitely could. That was it. That was the last trade. They literally was the like Kyle Lowry didn't get traded.
I
Everybody
don't know
thought
how.
they couldn't find. You know what it was? They valued the value of Lowry, even though he's older, is still high. He just won a championship 2 seasons ago. By him, I mean Kawhi.
He
What's his
puts up
contract?
he puts up 17 and 7 ish. His
What's his contract?
contract he has this year and he's done.
I'm surprised they didn't trade him for anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Do they think they're going to make a run?
I don't know. I don't know. Today's his birthday as well.
Oh man, you could
That's why. I don't
draft
know why
picks.
they didn't trade him.
Draft picks. You can get a first rounder for him. Lonzo Ball didn't get traded either. We
That
thought
was a
for
little
sure
surprising.
Chicago. I was more convinced that we are getting Lonzo Ball and that's it. That's all we're gonna get. We're gonna give up 2
Exactly.
picks and like Lauri Markkanen.
Which I would have been fine with.
I would have been cool with it. Hell yeah, I would have been fine with it. I would have been a-okay with it. Lonzo Ball's still super young,
He is a
super
restricted
talented.
free agent, so that was a reason why they probably kept him. He probably had a lot of value, which teams just didn't offer enough. Speaking of Lauri Markkanen, he actually was being talked with the Wizards. He almost got traded to the Wizards today in that deal. The reason why he did not, though, was the Wizards didn't want to give up a first-round pick.
I probably wouldn't want to either. That's tough. That's very tough. I'm glad it didn't. I feel like I have more faith in Lauri Markkanen than Wendell Carter. That's just the way it is. I like the upside, the fact that he's as tall as he is, can shoot the three, has had a better season this year than what he's had in the last couple of seasons. And he's still a sponge. He's still young. He could still mold into the player that they want him to be. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm excited. I'm very excited for this Bulls team moving forward. At least for next season, at least. If not the rest of this season. $10
Yeah.
wager, FanDuel Sports to win $2,500. Be on the lookout. Be on the lookout.
Yeah, if you guys do want to sign up for FanDuel, use fanduel.com/Healy6. Thanks.
Do it. Do it. We'll talk FanDuel. Hey, we're going to have an episode. We've talked about this. Our daily FanDuel Sports. Baseball's coming around. Who to pick? Who's the best value? Who's the high price guy you got to go with? I like FanDuel for baseball. That's always fun. That's always you
Yeah.
never know what you're gonna get. You never know. Baseball is such a weird sport. You see the best pitchers sometimes just get rocked, And those guys that win go pick that lineup against like the best pitcher in the league, and these guys win. It's like they know. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, FanDuel or just daily fantasy in general for baseball, you don't pick the same guys every day. You want to pick guys depending on who's the starter. Basketball and football, well, football's a little harder. I think basketball is probably like the worst one because you can
I
pick
love it.
anyone and get a high score, but you just have to pick right on who's going to get 55 points instead of 52.
I can write a book on FanDuel for basketball. I don't know how many times I've scored 400 this season. I never won. I can never win because there's always just that guy. There's always those like, I just picture like 3 guys in a room and they're like, this is it. And literally their lineup is it. Like I feel like I always see the same guys winning. I'm gonna be there one day. So is this value to dollar spent? Obviously, it's not real money, it's FanDuel money. I mean, you bet real money. They give you the 60,000 to spend. They say, oh, you can start off spending on average 6,600 a player. You don't do that. You go out, you drop 11,000 on a player, and then you get a guy for 3,800 that's starting in place of a hurt guy, and then it all averages out from there. That's all I gotta say. It works. It works. Anyways, that's gonna wrap up the episode. Make sure you guys are hitting that download button. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Give us a like, subscribe. Follow us on social media, SR Only Pod. We're on Twitter. We are on Instagram. You follow our personal accounts. I'm iGoose with 4 O's. We have Healy6, the Healy6, I should say. And we will talk to you guys next week. Make sure you tune in. We will be giving our predictions for the MLB season, award races, divisional winners, World Series. See you guys next
Yep.
week.
Have a good one.